Devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levarecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta ba'am v'shivtecha v'veitecha u'leftecha v'derech u'shofbecha u'kumecha Ukshartam leo dayadecha vehayu letotafot beineinecha uchatavtam al mezuzot beitecha ubisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim ledolechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Hotzeiti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Lehiot Lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's read together on the top of page 39, a very powerful reading that was originally composed as a kind of midrash on the Micha Mocha by Princeton professor Michael Walzer. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there was no way to go from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Micha Mocha, page 40.
Immediately after we sing that song, thanking God for the miracles in our midst, we ask God to help us make another miracle. We ask God to help us become agents of peace, helping to bring peace into the world. So at the top of page 43, we read this prayer on the theme of the Hashkivenu. We read these words together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'al kol Yerushalayim. Will you stand for tefillah, which begins on page 46, then continues on the even-numbered pages. We ask God to remember us for the sake of all of our ancestors, the fathers and the mothers of Israel. Adonai Sefakatita Ufia Gitahiltecha. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu Limoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Rachel, Gadol HaGibor HaNorah, Elyon, Romer Hasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKohu, V'Zoter Chasdei Avot V'Ima'ot, U'Mevi Gillah Livnei B'nehem, V'Ma'on Shemo Be'ahava Melech Hoseinu Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah, Atam Gorel Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atara Mashiach, Mashiach Ruach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim, Sahomech Noflim B'Rofei Holim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayehem Emunato, L'Shenei Ahar, Michamota Ba'al Gevurot, U'Midon Meherah, Melech Me'it U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Neheman Atah Hayocham, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom Yechalu Chasana. Baruch Atah Adonai, HaEl HaKadosh. We pause for a few moments of private prayer. You can continue with the traditional prayers, which continue through page 60, or say whatever else is in your heart and your mind. When you finish your own prayer, we invite you to be seated. At the bottom of page 62 is a prayer for peace. Oseh Shalom. We ask God to help us bring peace into the world for us, for all people everywhere. Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Israel. Shalom, thoughts turn towards prayers of healing. We begin with a prayer for our planet, which is in need of healing. Dear God, help us celebrate your awesome creation and all the life on the wondrous planet Earth. Help us feel connected to all of life on this small blue planet. Life is living us. Creator of the universe, help us understand that to master our world means to take responsibility, not only for ourselves, but for all the creatures on Earth. Help us use the power you gave us to build a better living world and not casually destroy the beauty we have borrowed from our children. We are your stewards, your partners in creation, and we call on you for help and guidance. Our God, God of our ancestors and of our children, in this code red of climate crisis, help us to preserve and protect life. We owe it to our children, those born and those yet to be. If not for them, not for us, then for them, dear God, guide us on our journey. Our thoughts also turn to those in our community and all around the world in need of healing. We think of those whose names we know and those whose names we don't. We ask God to remember them and bring them a healing. In our community, we're thinking of Ruth Abado, Marty Aronson, Mark Burka, Benjamin Haim Ben Saralea, Lori Cantor, Michael Dalboro, Shlomo David Levine Ben Chava, Lindsay Epstein, Michael Gold, Don Goldstein, Stuart Goodman, Jim Graham, Beth Greenberg, Willie Hahn, Robbie Maller Hartman, Dennis Hernrich, Julian Horwich, Ronna Kramer, Jay Levy, Sherry Levy, Marilyn Loesch, Michael Maller, Barry Marin, Jaleesa Matthews, Leah Moskoff, Enrique Neufeld, Noach Ben David, Linda Marim, James O'Neill, Rachel Yisrael Abachaim, Judy Rosenberg, Roberta Rosenfeld, Marty Rudow, Matt Sokolov, Marlene Sampson, Sarah Batsheva, Deborah Sen, Richard Serrata, Jeff Slowick, Andrea Steinberger, Carrie Ullman, Yocheved Chaya. Those of you who are on Zoom, we invite you to add names into the chat of those who you're thinking of as we sing a healing prayer. And those who are here in the sanctuary, I invite you, if you have names you'd like to add, please say them aloud. We ask God to remember all those we name aloud, all those we hold in our hearts, and those whose names we don't even know. And after this Shabbat, bring them a refuah shlema, a recovery of body and of mind and of spirit. We sing the words of the Misha Berach, which can be found on page 253 in your Siddur. Source of strength. This is our monthly Shabbat for healing the world, our Tikkun Olam Shabbat. And so we have a terrific guest speaker with us tonight, Yolanda Savage Narva. And it's not an accident, perhaps, that Yolanda is speaking to us in February in Black History Month. But even more importantly, in our community, it's part of our ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, a project that has been going on for some time and is looking to kind of change the face of American Judaism in many, many ways. Our congregation, like so many others, has been in what we might call an Ashkenormative way of looking at the world. And it's an opportunity for us to learn and to grow and to become the community that we hope to be. So I'm very excited to have Yolanda with us. We have not met in person, and I hope that that will be rectified sometime in the near future. But let me just introduce her as the Director of Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Union for Reform Judaism. For more than 20 years, Yolanda collaborated with tribal governments to strengthen public health systems, promoted pedestrian safety and advocacy, and coining the phrase, walking is a civil right, and advancing health equity in states and territories. Most recently, Yolanda was the executive director with Operation Understanding DC, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting understanding, cooperation, and respect while fighting to eradicate racism, anti-Semitism, and all forms of discrimination. Yolanda is an alumna of the Union of Reform Judaism's Juvenation Fellowship, which is in part of this equity work, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, as well as an immediate past member of the Religious Action Center's Commission on Social Action. I've read many of the things you've written, Yolanda. I've heard a podcast where you were interviewed, and I'm looking forward to a time when we can meet in person, but I'm so glad that you're able to be with us here tonight. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Chicago, which I know is the place of your birth, but not where you grew up. So welcome home in a certain way.
Thank you so much. You sing a lot, and it has inspired me. I want to start with a little nigun, and then we'll jump in. Oh, ya da 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 da, oh, ya da 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 da, oh, ya da 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 da, oh, ya da 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 da. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, congregation, Macomb, Solel, Lakeside. Rabbi Ike, thank you so much for such a warm introduction. I do feel like I'm home. A big thank you to Wendy Rhodes. I don't know if you're on the screen or if you're live in the audience tonight, but thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your very, very special community this evening for your Tikkun Olam Shabbat. So if we could just take a moment to pause and take a deep breath together. One cleansing deep breath. And this breath can mean many things to you. Tonight for me, this breath is a breath of gratitude, of awareness and rejuvenation that I feel is particularly needed on this Shabbat. So thank you for doing that with me. Before I begin, I would like to briefly share my pronouns. I use she, her pronouns. And I am sitting on Pamunkey, Piscataway, and Anacostan tribal land, also known as Washington, D.C. And I am a member of Temple Micah here in Washington, D.C. Rabbi Danny Zimmel is our senior rabbi. So if it's okay with you tonight, I would like to share a couple of thoughts that I have around this idea of creating what I call the community of belonging. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also calls it the beloved community. And so I have some ideas about what questions we need to ask ourselves in order to create that community. What is that community? What does it look like? How do we get there? And then what is our role individually and collectively for co-creating that community where we all belong? So this month, as you're well aware, is Black History Month. And every February for the past, I can't do the math, since 1967, we've celebrated Black History Month. So Black History Month didn't start out as a month. It actually started out as Negro History Week. And it was created by Carter G. Woodson, who was an American historian. His parents were formerly enslaved. And interestingly enough, Carter G. Woodson was the second Black person to earn a doctorate from Harvard. So this is where Black History Month got its roots. So I'll be honest with you. I'll be transparent. I do have mixed feelings, mixed emotions about Black History Month. And I suppose it's kind of these polar opposites. On one hand, I love Black History Month, and I can't wait for it to come around every year. So there are opportunities to highlight the contributions made to the world by people of African descent. And then I have an opportunity to always learn something new during Black History Month. On the other hand, it is 1 month. It is 1 month. And I think about all of the other times that things are happening, either contributions or sacrifices that are being made the other 11 months of the year, and particularly the sacrifices. One of the things I'm most reminded about this week is something that's been going through my head is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it does tend to bend toward justice. And that's been replaying in my head over and over. And this notion that progress isn't linear, it never has been, it never will be. That there are times when we seem to be progressing forward. I think an example of that is last year, Juneteenth, the commemoration of the emancipation of enslaved Africans became a federally recognized holiday. That's a step in the right direction. HR 40, which is the legislation that calls for a commission on the study of reparations for the first time in 30 plus years, was written up, as they call a write-up or a markup of the legislation, meaning that someone actually took it seriously and took a look at it, and there might be an opportunity for this to come up for a vote in the next congressional cycle. These are steps in the right direction. But it's almost, in my mind, a little scary, because every time there's a few steps forward and there's progress, there's this kind of extreme kind of backlash that comes with it. And I think, unfortunately, today we're seeing this backlash in multiple ways. But one of the areas I think that I have been observing this happening the most is in the area of education broadly. But this isn't new. And if you track this over time, over history, you see that there's a trend and a pattern around education, and Black people has always been associated with violence or threats or something that made people uneasy about educating people of color. So here's an example. In 1740, in South Carolina, anyone who was caught teaching a Black person to read or write carried a $500 fine. And and potentially a beating as well. Now, if you think about that, in 1740, $500 was a lot of money. And so people who were caught, no matter who was caught, would be fined $500. Even after Brown versus the Board of Education, the state of Virginia fought as much as they could to not have to integrate the schools. And they were the last state to actually integrate schools, I think all the way into the early 1970s. Just learn about Ruby Bridges and her story. Ruby Bridges was the first student to integrate an elementary school in New Orleans, Louisiana. James Meredith is another Black person, first Black person to attend Ole Miss. And so if you think about the trajectory over time and the correlation between education and trying to keep people of color from being educated, it's nothing new. If we fast forward to today, and think about the most recent potential violence toward historical Black colleges and universities and all the bomb threats that were received at the beginning of the year, several on the first day of Black History Month. And then the more insidious, quiet violence that is happening with kids in neighborhoods who are attending under-resourced schools and have very few opportunities. But one of the things that has been most prominent in the news recently is the backlash that's happening around what's being taught in our schools. And I know that you've been paying attention to the news, and I mean, there's been a lot of things going on, a lot of complexities around the book Mouse, critical race theory. All of these things are efforts to try to erase history, whether it's American history or world history, all tied to how it's important for us to understand the links between oppression, racism, anti-Semitism, and all forms of discrimination. If you see this pattern, you understand that this is something that is a huge issue and something that we should be focused on as a community. So this brings me back to my initial question. We know that there are assaults on the education system, on healthcare, on transportation, on all of these systems that we rely on. How do we then, from a Jewish perspective, think about building our community of belonging and starting with our own community? How do we get there? What is our role in co-creating those communities? And what is our call to action? So the late, great Maya Angelou was interviewed by Bill Moyers in 1973. And he asked her a question about what is this thing around belonging? How do you create that? And Dr. Angelou answered in this way, you are only free when you realize that you belong no place. You belong every place. You belong no place at all. The price is high and the reward is great. And I wrote that quote down when I first heard it. And I said, wow, I really want to unpack this because in the brain of Dr. Angelou, what did she mean by you belong no place? You belong every place and you belong no place at all. So I said, you gave us a challenge, Dr. Angelou, but I think we're up for it. What does it mean to belong no place? And so that has led me to think about our role as Jews with Tikkun Olam. And I use this analogy around mirrors and windows. And Tikkun Olam is our window. When we think about we belong no place. Tikkun Olam is our window. As Jews, our tradition and our values call for us to repair the world, to welcome the stranger. And our Reform Jewish values call for justice, justice we shall pursue. In the Mishnah Sanhedrin, chapter 4, verse 5, it states that we learn that all people are descendants from a single person, so that no person can say, my ancestor is greater than yours. God created humanity from the four corners of the earth: yellow clay and white sand, black loam and red soil. Therefore, the earth can declare to no part of humanity that it does not belong here, that this soil is not their rightful home. And so for us, the Tikkun Olam piece is something that just comes naturally because it's part of our values. Jews marched alongside and died alongside Black Christian leaders during the Civil Rights Movement, for the fight for voting rights and civil rights. Fast forward to today, we think about our work with immigrant communities and HIAS. We do work to repair the world. And that is a part of belonging no place, because we know as Jews what it's like to not belong in a specific place and have this sense of constant movement. And so we do Tikkun Olam to repair the world in the larger scope of things. But that's only one part of the picture. What does it mean to belong every place? And so this is where our mirror work comes in. Remember, we talked about the window. Now we're talking about the mirror. And this is the Tikkun Midot, where we turn inward and we think about what we need to do to build the stamina and strengthen ourselves to continue to do the work. Because we're individuals, we're souls, we're spirits who have opportunities to influence and impact the world in very small ways, but add up to very macro ways. And so this is where we belong every place, because we have an opportunity, if we think about our individual influence and how that can add up to be a collective influence, we have the opportunity to really belong every place and make the changes that we need to make to create our communities of belonging. We have to address our internal biases as a part of this Tikkun Midot and belonging every place. We have to understand that we live in a system that's designed to create a hierarchy of people, and we have to be able to navigate that and understand that. We also, as Jews, have to understand that we do carry trauma ourselves, and how do we navigate that trauma and continue to do the good in the world that we need to do. And this is what it means to belong every place. And then finally, Maya Angelou says, we belong no place at all. And this makes me think about Olam Hadash. We belong no place at all. That means that we have to be the co-creators of this community, imagining a world anew, and really thinking about this idea of radical equity, thinking about our ancestors and how they've paved the way for us to plant the seeds for our descendants to come, to make this world a better place and imagine a world anew. In this process with radical equity, we do have to figure out how we get past the point and fact that we do have to probably give something up to get where we want to get. We have to give something up to get where we need to get. And then the final piece of this no place at all is really orbiting around kavod for me, that we have to have this real sense of honor and dignity of who we are, so we can do the work that we need to do today for future generations. And so with that, I know we are getting close to time. I want to ask you to do this, and you don't have to do it now, but I want you to go back to your homes, for those who are in person, for those of you who are on the screen, and think about what your role is in creating Olam Hadash and creating a new world. And if you think of it right now, jot it down, but I really want you to think about that tonight, because it's our individual efforts and our collective energy that is going to move us where we need to go. And I want to leave you with a song that I want you to look up. We don't have time to I wanted to read it. I cannot sing a Nina Simone song. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna try that. But the song is called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. And so I urge you to write this down and listen to the lyrics. Listen to Nina Simone sing this song, because it's a piece of poetry that is beautiful and really frames Black History Month and our journey as Jews doing this work and really creating that community of belonging that we all long to create. And so thank you all so much for this opportunity to spend Tikkun Olam Shabbat with you, and I will turn it over from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I look forward to continuing the dialogue, getting to meet you in person. It was as if you were right here with us. And and I'm sure the people at home probably felt like they were sitting around a dining room table with you. So really terrific. And please, if you don't mind, give my regards to Rabbi Semmel when you see him, because I started out my rabbinic career in Washington, D.C., and he referred my first wedding couple to me when he was going on in 1988, I think. So, so I owe him a great debt for that, and he's been a good friend for many years. So, so thank you, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully in person one of these days, and would welcome the chance to have you in our sanctuary.
Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom.
Yes, give Rabbi Zemmel my best too. He's a fellow Chicago. I mean, he's a Chicagoan. He grew up here, so he's a great guy. And we invite you now to please rise as we continue with the Aleinu, page 282. Our thoughts now turn to all those who've departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, and all those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. In our community in particular, we are in the period of 30 days mourning of Shiloshim for Harold Chiswer, husband of Linda Chiswer, for Rose Schiller, wife of James Schiller, Donna Gottlieb, wife of Jim Gottlieb, for Michael Langendorf, father of Emily Meisel, and for Sue Weiskopf, mother of Ellen Blank, and for Andrea Platt, cousin of Rabbi Ike Serrata. We observe the Yortzites, the anniversary of their deaths this Shabbat, of Rose Baum, Bernice Below, Joshua Harry Davidson, James Dorff, Henry Firestone, Ruth Freed, Robert Friedman, Harry Harold, Philip Horwich, Bernard Carroll, Elsa Levy Kirchheimer, Elizabeth Klein, Lester Klein, Hannah Krasnow, Sidney Langsam, William Levin, Roy Prop, Elaine Rappaport, Stephen Richardson, Angeline Ann Robin, Marvin Ross, Martin Rotter, Samuel Rubel, Saul Schultz, Louis Shapira, and Sarah Sternberg. Is anyone else observing the org site or has a name they'd like to mention? And in love and in memory, we continue with the words of the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bialma, Ivra, Hirute, Biamlich Malpute, B'chayachon, Yomechon, Uvchaye, Dechol, Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Ubizman Kari, Vimru, Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah, Mevorach, Leolam, Lomei Almaya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitnoman, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudashah, Rehu, Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran V'alma V'imru, Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. O say Shalom B'Romav, Uya say Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May God, the source of peace, send peace to all of us who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us all say Amen. May be seated. David, I believe you have some announcements to share with us.
Good evening. I am David Macklin, one of the vice presidents here at Macomb Solel Lakeside, and it's my privilege to welcome you to our Shabbat service tonight on behalf of all of our officers and directors. If you are new to our community, please feel free to engage any one of us. I'm supposed to have a white badge on. I left it in the car. You can figure out who knows some people around here. We'd love to chat with you. Some things to know. Our Tikkun Olam group has partnered with a nonprofit group called Mask to collect and then donate to those in need new gloves, mittens, hats, and scarves in all sizes for all ages. There's a collection box by the temple office, and while we may not achieve making a new world, as our beautiful speaker said, maybe we can at least make it a warmer world for those in need. And if any one of you would like to make an even greater impact on our Macomb Solel Lakeside community, you are welcome to please join a committee, consider becoming a board member. If you're interested at all, please contact Holly Krakow in our office or our Executive Vice President, Jen Gordon, anytime, and we certainly would be interested. And look, if I can do it, we have a number of upcoming events. Torah study and Minyan are at 9:15 tomorrow morning on Zoom, and Sunday's adult enrichment, also on Zoom, is at 10 a.m. We are featuring Benjamin Wolf, who is the son of quite famous Rabbi Arnold Jacob Wolf, and Benjamin will share about his work with the incredible American Civil Liberties Union, pardon me. The Zoom links are in your Macomb at Home email, which you regularly receive, and you can find all about activities, events at the Macomb website. Tonight, I have to wish my daughter, Eden, who is out skiing in Montana with her boyfriend, a Macomb Solel Lakeside alum, a healthy and happy 19th birthday. And to each and every one of you, a healthy and happy Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what a wonderful service. Thanks again to our guest speaker. Thanks to all of our committee members who helped make this possible. Thanks to all of you for coming out on this cold night. And so let's warm it up and sing with some joy and enthusiasm. Ein Keloheinu. I don't even know what page it's on, but I think we all know the words. It's gotta be near the front. You know, it's one of those common songs. Let's find it here. Where's Ein Keloheinu? Let's see. Here we go. 322. Ein Keloheinu. Let's all sing together. Ein
This cup is from our Kiddush Cup collection, and it's from the Macklin family. Happy birthday, Eden, wherever you are in Montana. Thank you, David. And so we sing this blessing over the cup of the fruit of the vine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
L'chaim. And we bless the braided loaf, the challah, which reminds us that our lives are intertwined, that we're all one family of life. And so we say this blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei haolam.
This concludes our service. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.